Professional wrestling today is one of the most polarizing television experiences on the planet. When wrestling is in air quotes good, it is one of the most exciting and captivating features of entertainment, but when it's bad, it makes me want to claw my eyes out furiously. Obviously, when labeling anything as bad, there has to be some perspective added because not everybody is going to have the exact same taste. Just like in film, take a polarizing movie like Mother, which just came out in theaters about a month ago or so. It has a 68% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. You may be thinking, that isn't so bad, but if you dive into some of the audience reviews, they can be quite horrific. A lot of people felt the dark and in some people's eyes pretentious nature in which Darren Aronofsky went about it was something they just couldn't connect with, causing them to treat the film with such distaste. However, a lot of these people didn't even take the time to understand the message of the movie or Darren Aronofsky's creative genius behind the film. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing a masterpiece written by one of the best directors working today to WWE television writers. There is obviously a huge disconnect there, but I'm comparing the scenarios. These TV writers who are forced to write a weekly product with plenty of producers in suits going over things, changing wording to better represent sponsors and advertisers, along with partnerships WWE has with various organizations, whilst trying to plan ahead. It is a strenuous process that you can't really go out of your way and condemn without being in the footsteps of one of these writers. You have to understand working under an individual like Vince McMahon, who for years was one of a very small group of guys writing this weekly TV show. Not only that, but doing it when the show was at its highest peak for viewership and popularity during the Attitude Era. WWE is also trying to appeal to each demographic, where in some aspects of the show they will focus on talent such as AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, and Finn Balor, and other internet wrestling favorites. They also have to provide for the more casual and youthful audiences who pay to see guys like John Cena, Roman Reigns, Sasha Banks, or Randy Orton. And they have to feature everybody in a way that each demographic of the audience can connect with a part of the show. Now, I wanted to talk about this past Raw with the return of Kane, because a lot of people on my timeline on Twitter were blasting the concept of Kane's return, but not just because of anything logical or thought out. The reasoning was simply because it's Kane. Because he's a 50-year-old man in the main event of Monday Night Raw. Since nobody feels that they need to dive into the logistics or story of the matter, I'm gonna do so for you right now. So, The Shield made their debut at WWE TLC in 2012 in a 6-man tag team TLC match against Ryback, Daniel Bryan, and that's right, Kane. Obviously, Ryback isn't with the company and Daniel Bryan is retired, so we have Kane providing another connection between this match this Sunday at TLC and the first match 5 years ago. The significance of this reunion is built on that connection between the Shield's debut and this match this Sunday, and I'm sure they will tie in Survivor Series as well, being that was their first pay-per-view as a stable in WWE. Now, a lot of people argued with me on Twitter because I didn't want to see Joe in the match. Okay, so you want Joe in a 5-on-3 match against The Shield, only for him to lose. Yeah, and of course Joe wouldn't be taking the fall here, but what kind of return is that? To lose in a super team of 5 guys against 3 guys when you have a guy like Braun Strowman on your team. Whereas Kane is at a point in his career where he can not only be on the losing team, but Kane can take the fall. This would be perfect to protect all members of the team, including The Bar, The Miz, who is the Intercontinental Champion, and Braun Strowman, who should not be taking any more clean losses for a while after losing to Brock Lesnar. There's logic, but fans don't tend to use it very often, although they claim to. WWE fans tend to be blinded by their fandom and blinded by certain outcomes that they want to happen. They feel almost entitled for the stories to always play out exactly how they want them to, and that is not a right way to go about fandom. And yes, WWE should be doing their best to write a television program to appeal to all its demographics, but no show is perfect and no show is as creatively demanding to its writers than WWE. There is a lot more here than just what you see on TV and what you hear on the dirt sheets, because you're only hearing the perspective of one individual. You're only hearing a small piece of such a big system. You're only hearing the perspective of one cog, but there is so many cogs that makes the wheel keep going. And in order to really understand the mindset of WWE from all angles, you really need to be a part of that to understand. And of course, as a creator online, you are allowed to give your opinion. You are providing your perspective on an issue or on something that happened on the show for your audience, and you're allowed to have that opinion, but you also have to understand perspective. Perspective in wrestling is so important and something that nobody has. Nobody understands, for the most part, on these platforms, what it's like to be a creative writer behind that company wall. And there are so many things and aspects to running a company, a publicly traded company like WWE. For example, trying to tap into different markets, trying to appeal to certain markets. And now you can argue the Jinder Mahal thing. I could make a separate video on that discussing it, because there are definitely positives and negatives to that whole situation. But one of the big things in WWE is just as much an entertainment platform as it is a wrestling company. And yes, the wrestling is important. The wrestling is what engages us. The wrestling is a big part of the stories that are told. But you also have to have these characters. And a character like Jinder Mahal, who, yes, definitely needs some ironing out on the edges, has definitely improved and definitely has the visual representation of what I would like to see in a WWE champion. He wears the championship with pride. He wears it looking like a champion. He dresses like a champion. He enters like a champion. He has his little entourage of the Singh brothers that kind of makes him feel just a little more important. And yes, his in-ring skills need work, and the finisher is just not good. He needs a new finisher. The Colossus, it's just not something that he can do successfully and not something with enough impact to believably put somebody away. And that is a big part of why I didn't agree with Shinsuke Nakamura taking 2 falls to Jinder Mahal. Mind you, one of them wasn't a clean finish. I feel like with a more convincing finisher, it would have been less of a bitter pill to swallow. Now, this has been kind of a all about video, but in reality, what all of this is really about is perspective in wrestling, and I just want anyone listening to this video to get a better understanding of perspective in WWE, because there is so many different ways to look at things that you can't just sit here and claim your way is the right way without having a better understanding of all perspectives.